We have our last two semi-finalists in the Women's World Cup. Let's start with England's game against Colombia. It finished 2-1. It was a comeback win for Sarina Wiegman's women. Probably not the most convincing of them as well, but they do march on to another semi-final. Let's talk more about it, starting with you, Alexis Nunes. You were at the game. What stood out to you?
Yeah, Kate, honestly, I think what stood out to me for England, that even though it wasn't the prettiest of wins or the most convincing one, which has been quite the trend for the Lionesses at this World Cup, that they're not dominating teams as many expect them to be, considering they're heavy favorites to win the entire thing. But I was actually impressed with how they were able to deal with the adversity that was thrown at them. This Stadium Australia was basically Stadium Bogota or Stadium Colombia. It was filled to the brim with Colombian fans that just absolutely were booing England every time any of their players touched the ball. So they were definitely up against it. And the fact that England went a goal down, I started thinking, this could be in Colombia's favor massively. But then England dug deep. They fought back. They got gritty. You just look at that goal from Lauren Hemp. That was the equalizer. And then a stunning finish from Alessia Russo, which probably brings us back to how England want to play. But I thought England were going to be a bit more frustrated and let it show, like how they were up against Nigeria, because Colombia, like Nigeria, got physical with them. They were able to disrupt their flow. They were a bit able to stop them from playing that nice, pretty football that we expect England to play. But this time they dug deep. They admit it wasn't pretty, but that's exactly what's needed in tournament football.
Yeah, it's something you picked out, actually, Sebi, that we did get to see that England can be adaptable.
That's right. Under Sarina Wiegman at the last, European Championship, they won it all, but they didn't make a lot of changes to their lineup. Here we've seen quite a bit of changes. We've seen them play with a back four. We've seen them play with a back three. We've seen Rachel Daly come off the bench as a wing back and kind of be an inspired part of this team. And then I think today what we saw was, with no Lauren James, you got a big hole to fill. They go Ella Toone. It worked out. I still think, though, when I look at this England performance, I think they're pretty lucky to get through here. The goal, yes, credit. You're scrapping for it at the end of the half. There's certainly something to be said there for Lauren Hemp. But we got to be honest. Catalina Perez, the Colombian goalie, that's a gaffe that she will never forget. She had two great chances to grab the ball right there. If she does, Colombia makes it to the half up 1-0. Totally different ball game. So credit to England for fighting back. And you could hear it on the television. It was like playing an away game in Colombia. It was very, very intense. A great atmosphere for sure.
Well, Australia certainly have the home crowd behind them in this tournament. They came up against France. They couldn't be separated after extra time, so it went all the way to a dramatic penalty shootout. And it is Australia, the co-hosts, who will be progressing to the semi-finals. I know you caught the end of this one, Alexis, because obviously you were on England duty for these quarter-finals, but the atmosphere in Australia must be amazing right now.
Okay, it was absolutely amazing, and we got to catch the end of that as well as the penalty shootout in the press box, and everybody was absolutely glued to any screen they could possibly have, and it was such a wonderful moment in the end to share with. Pretty much half of the room was split between France and then obviously majority supporting Australia. We had a load of the volunteers, and once it was confirmed that Australia were going to the semi-finals, you could just hear the screams around the stadium. What was interesting is that the teams, both Colombia and England, had gone to do a walkout at that time, and they had the match on the big screens, and fans were watching, and even the players stopped to watch, because it is a huge moment. We talk about how important it is to have at least one of the co-hosts have a deep run in the tournament. Australia definitely have shown that they're not just here to have fun and show you their country. They're here to compete, and they're here to knock out big teams, as they did with France. And I think that this result against France, while it may surprise some, for those of us that have been watching the Matildas quite closely, I got to see them defeat England in Brentford just a few months ago, and they look like the real deal. So this definitely was not a result that surprised me.
Yeah, meanwhile, heartbreak for France, though, Sebi.
Absolutely. And huge game, kind of big picture for both of these teams, who have basically at major international tournaments been quarterfinals, and that's it with a few exceptions. So to see France go out like this is heartbreaking, especially when you think of kind of their aging generation. Eugénie Le Sommer, 34 years old. Wendy Renard, 33 years old. These are icons of French football. This may well be their last World Cup. And credit to Australia, because they're doing it without Sam Kerr. Yes, she played 35, 40 minutes in this game. She only played 10 minutes in the first knockout round game against Denmark. And even when she's on the field, she's not the difference maker you might expect. So Australia edging along right now is very, very impressive. And I think you got to talk about their back line. Catley, Kennedy, Hunt, and Carpenter have just been so solid throughout this tournament. And without that back four, Australia's not in the Final Four.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.